Looking at temperatures in the mid-teens quite widely, perhaps the southeast getting up to 17 or 18, and Thursday could be warmer still. The wind's still wafting the air up from the south, a brisk breeze across the northeast, some wetter weather though coming back into Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Eventually some of that rain popping up in the west of England and Wales later on. But before that, the Midlands and eastern England, another pretty fine day and getting a little warmer. Goodbye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
A camper van and cash could be yours in our very latest Great British Giveaway. You could be driving away in this brand new Benavan 122. This 2026 model, worth over £67,000, comes with all of the mod cons you'd expect. And that's not all, as you'll also get an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash to boost your bank account this year. For a chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
And I'm not, by the way, I'm not happy with the UK either, though we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Not Winston Churchill is Donald Trump's verdict on our humiliated Prime Minister. The United States President has eviscerated Keir Starmer after delays in giving the USA permission to use the Diego Garcia Air Base, saying he has damaged the historic alliance between our two countries. Is Sir Keir Starmer the Prime Minister who destroyed the special relationship? Also tonight, is he the heir to Blair or not?
The answer is, I don't know.
Prime Minister's hesitation, indecision and indifference has led us to abandon our historically closest ally on the world stage. The man who was touted as the successor to Tony Blair has proved to be anything but. Has Keir Starmer learnt any lessons from his predecessor, or was his decision to hide behind international law an attempt to rectify the mistakes of the Iraq War? Plus, nearly 1,000 years after William the Conqueror invaded British shores, France is stepping into Britain's security orbit, with drone strikes hitting RAF At Rotary, President Emmanuel Macron sent warships and missile systems to defend it. And this evening we learned that an embarrassed Britain will belatedly send HMS Dragon to Cyprus to defend our own bases. So why all the delay and humiliation? And the Chancellor's spring statement was 30 minutes of nothing. With the crisis in the Middle East affecting oil prices, the downward revision of growth being glossed over, and record high youth unemployment being blamed on everybody else, Rachel Reeves' statement addressed nothing, solved nothing, and will achieve nothing while the economic damage continues. State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most pugnacious panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin McKenzie, and the journalist and broadcaster Michael Crick. As always, let me know what you think, mailmog at gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Tatiana Sanchez.
Jacob, thank you and good evening. The top stories. President Donald Trump has criticised Sir Keir Starmer and the UK's initial response to US-Israeli strikes on Iran, saying this is not Winston Churchill we're dealing with. He says he's not happy with the UK and told reporters at the White House everything's been knocked out in Iran.
By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
That says the UK is increasing its air defences at its base in Cyprus by deploying helicopters with anti-drone capabilities. The Prime Minister says the air defence destroyer HMS Dragon will be sent to the Eastern Mediterranean, adding the UK is fully committed to the security of Cyprus and British military personnel based there. It was struck by an Iranian-made drone on Sunday. Meanwhile, the US Embassy in Saudi Arabia has warned of an imminent threat of missile or drone attacks over Dhahran, a major centre for the oil industry and where a US consulate is located. Israel says it carried out new attacks on Iran's leadership compound today, including the presidential office, with more attacks on Tehran announced later. The IDF also identified missiles launched from Iran towards Israel. IDF soldiers are on the ground in southern Lebanon, stationed near the border. The Israeli military said they've killed a senior Iranian terror regime commander in Tehran. A British F-35B has shot down a hostile drone over Jordan, marking the first time a British F-35 jet has destroyed a target on operations. The Ministry of Defence says it was supported by RAF Typhoon jets and a Voyager air-to-air refuelling aircraft as part of their defensive operation to protect British interests and allies. The use of the F-35B in a live engagement represents a milestone for the aircraft in UK service. The UK government has announced its first charter flight to bring people back from the region. It will leave Oman in the coming days. That is the first evacuation flight back to Britain from Abu Dhabi landed at Heathrow Airport today. Yvette Cooper says 135,000 British nationals have signed up to the Register Your Presence programme in the Middle East, with more than 300,000 Britons in the region overall. Sir Keir Starmer says the government's working on plans to get people home safely. And the Chancellor says the latest set of forecasts show the government's economic plans are the right ones as she delivered her spring statement today. Rachel Reeves says Labour has ensured economic stability and security in an uncertain world. Growth in GDP has been revised down for this year from 1.4% to 1.1%, but the forecast has been revised up for the following years, rising by 1.6% in both 2027 and 28. The forecasts do not take into account any potential impact from the jump in energy prices triggered by the conflict in the Middle East, but the OBR says it could have very significant impacts on the global and UK economies. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. It's over to Jacob.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Well, the special relationship is in as much difficulty today as it has been probably since Suez. Look what Donald Trump had to say about our current leadership.
By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Well, it's clearly not Winston Churchill, who spent so much time, effort and energy making sure that the special relationship worked. And why does the special relationship matter? We are, of course, two independent sovereign countries, but with a degree of shared history, a common language and an affection for each other. Look at what Donald Trump had to say about our late Queen.
And this is with Queen Elizabeth. Right here, who was fantastic, by the way. These images, I mean, who has images like this? And these were relationships, too. Look, here's now the king. Here's Charles with the guard. And this is the Queen, Queen Elizabeth. It's a piece of history at the highest level. You get to know him so well. This is your favorite president with the Queen.
So you have a president who has a romantic view of the United Kingdom, who's friendly, well-disposed towards us, whose mother was British, and yet the relationship has deteriorated. In his early days as Prime Minister, Keir Starmer actually did remarkably well in developing a good relationship with Donald Trump, in managing to reduce the tariffs that were imposed on the United Kingdom because of that, pulling out of the bag the state visit of Donald Trump to see the king, managing to flatter the most important and powerful man in the world in the interests of the United Kingdom. And this is the key thing. The US and the UK have many shared interests. We want a stable West. We need the US to carry on helping in Ukraine. We want it to help more as it happens and should be concerned about Donald Trump's caution there. Nonetheless, we don't want to annoy him so that he does less. We need to be on the same side as America in relation to China, where Xi Jinping is going back to a Maoist approach to running the country and could be a threat to Taiwan. We also need to be supporting the United States in relation to Iran. Why? Because Iran has promoted terrorism around the world. In this country, journalists in this country lived in fear of the Iranian government that tried to kill them. This was taking place on British soil. They have called us the little Satan. They view us as an enemy. They have been hostile to us. And therefore, when America wanted to destroy the leadership that was hostile to us, we weren't going to be able to stop it. It's perfectly reasonable to debate whether it's a good thing to do. It is perfectly reasonable to consider our relationship in the Middle East going back not just years, but centuries, going back to Sykes-Picot, going back to the Crusades, all sorts of problems in the Middle East, not least Iraq and Libya. Nonetheless, whatever our concerns, we weren't going to stop it. And we were faced with the choice of supporting our closest friend, our most important ally, and the most powerful nation in the world, or appearing to be weak, and therefore losing credibility and influence with the President of the United States. And all of this falls down to Sir Keir Starmer, who seems to have been guided by an interpretation of international law that never allows you to do anything, that if international law means that you have to allow a state that wants to create nuclear bombs should be free to go ahead and do it, then international law is, to coin a phrase, a ass. And that is also a law that has no legislature that can change it, no democratic accountability. It is just made up by the people who view themselves as the great and the good, and then stops us doing things that will defend our nation or defend our crucial national interest, which is remaining close to the United States. As ever, let me know what you think, mailmog@gbnews.com. But I'm now very pleased to be joined by the Labour MP for Bournemouth East, Tom Hayes. Tom, first of all, thank you very much for coming on, your first appearance on GB News, so you're particularly welcome. It does seem to me that Keir Starmer, who'd done so well in developing the special relationship in his period of office, dealing with a particularly idiosyncratic president, has now thrown it all away over 48 hours.
Well, thank you for having me on, first of all. It's a pleasure to be with you. I would reject that. I don't think that the US-UK relationship has been thrown away. It's a long-standing relationship that has survived many presidents and many prime ministers. And I think what's striking is that when the president says something on his social media channels, quite quickly he moves away from it, or if he doesn't, the State Department and the Pentagon do. So those relations will continue. I think it's also just staring into reality here. With the strikes against Iran, Donald Trump is continuing a new path as president, one that builds on his actions in Venezuela. Somebody who wants to wrong foot his allies as well as his opponents, who is more unpredictable as the week goes by. And so, of course, the Prime Minister spent an awful lot of time investing in a personal relationship with Donald Trump. Of course, he fought for Britain's interest in that relationship. But when push comes to shove, and the UK is asked to join an offensive military operation of choice, and the UK declines, is it any wonder that President Trump then criticises our Prime Minister? Well, and I would just add one final thought here, which is Donald Trump is no Truman and he's no Roosevelt. And I say that because they knew in World War II and after exactly what the goals they were pursuing were. Donald Trump seems to be changing his mind about the operations in Iran by the minute, and that should be really alarming. So why should the UK Prime Minister commit military service personnel and put at risk our interests, our people, our economy for an operation which has got changing goals and, as far as Donald Trump seems to be behaving, an unpredictable leader?
Because our interests and our people were put at risk anyway. As soon as America struck, Iran started trying to hit back at British people in the United Arab Emirates and at the airbase in Cyprus. So we were always going to be at risk once this happened. And all Trump was asking for was to use American resources on bases that they have from the United Kingdom. That's not an enormous amount to ask. It wasn't putting British troops at risk.
Well, let's reflect on what you just said there. We have a US president who, when the Prime Minister rejected the request to be involved in the military operations, nonetheless prosecuted those operations knowing they could put UK lives, UK service personnel's lives at risk, that it was destabilising a region that would impact on his allies. And if I may, this is the US president who said that the UK and other allies were not combatant nations in Afghanistan. This is the US president who has not respected...
He did apologise for that, but to be fair. He accepts that he made a mistake on that,
well,
and he apologised to...
So he evidently has made a mistake in calling the Prime Minister as he has today, and I think he'll change his mind too. Not Winston Churchill. So my point here is that actually we need to be really mindful about putting the lives of our brave service personnel at risk. You never, ever commit the UK to a military operation without a clear strategy and clear goals.
He wasn't asking for us to put our forces at risk. He was asking to use 2 air bases to fly American aircraft from those air bases, that he was going to carry out the operation. It's not like Iraq or Afghanistan, where British troops were going to be actively involved in the early stages of the campaign. And are you really saying that allowing Iran to carry on creating a nuclear weapon, which it's been trying to do for years, a regime that has just massacred thousands of its own people, should be allowed to carry on doing that, and the West should sit back and do nothing?
Well, those are 2 huge questions, and I'll take on the second one first, if I may. I am a gay man who knows that if I were living in Iran under the Supreme Leader, I would have been hung from a crane. I know, too, that the Supreme Leader and the cohort around him have repressed and massacred their civilians, and how many they have killed and how many they have repressed, we will never know because of the media blackout that they operate. I know, too, that I do not want a nuclear-armed Iran, and I don't shed a tear for the death of the Supreme Leader. But does that require the UK to commit to a military operation of choice in attacking Iran when the goal is not entirely clear from the president? Is the goal regime change? Is it a flourishing of democracy? Is it about making sure that the nuclear weaponry is disintegrated, the missile delivery systems are disintegrated? Is it about peace in the Middle East? Is it about regional stability? I don't think he knows what he's trying to achieve, and I think in the coming days we're going to see an America that is having to articulate in more narrow and specific terms exactly what it wants to achieve because it isn't able to achieve them.
Well, what he achieved in his first term as president was the Abraham Accords that was beginning to bring peace in the Middle East, was bringing nations that had been very hostile to Israel to at least open diplomatic relations and have travel arrangements with Israel. He's actually got quite a good record in the Middle East of beginning the process of peace, more effectively than others have done, against a record where the Obama approach to Iran had given it billions of dollars, which it had used to carry on oppressing its people and to develop its nuclear program. So there does seem to be some logic behind what Trump has done in the past.
Always with the greatest respect, I think the comparison here isn't between Trump and Obama. I think it's between Trump presidency 1 and Trump presidency 2. I think nobody could deny that the president in his second term is pursuing a very different path to his first. And I will sit here and I will say that with the Abraham Accords, he of course contributed towards international peace and stability in the region. But the presidency that he is executing now is one which is far more militarised, is far more forward-leaning in its use of military force and far less interested in the use of peace and negotiation.
I accept the first part of what you say, but Iran was that much closer to nuclear weapons, and it seems to me that it's pretty fundamental that Iran should not have nuclear weapons and that it is overwhelmingly in the British national interest, even to the use of troops, to stop that happening, because the risk of Iran having nuclear weapons is even higher than North Korea, who's already got them.
And I'm here thinking about the evidence before us. How clear, how certain are we about how close Iran was to being a nuclear armed state? The US launched military weapons and offensive against Iran in the past few months, which was impactful. Do we have clear evidence from the US to prove that the Iranian regime was nearer to a nuclear
I don't have
weapon?
any...
And so we have to rely on a president whose interest it is in creating the impression.
But he has pretty good security services. I mean, amazing levels.
Iran being quite close.
But amazing levels of secret information. As I understand it, they were able to turn all the CCTV in Tehran to know exactly where the supreme leadership was going. They have infiltrated Iran very effectively. And what one's reading is that the attacks last year delayed but didn't stop. They scotched rather than killing the snake. And therefore this is stage 2 to make sure that it is completed. And that seems to me to be justifiable.
I think both of us would really enjoy the security clearance, which allows us to see that intelligence, because then we could really pin down what the truth is. But I think what we do know...
But you would be in
is
favour of that if that were the case.
Without this information, it's hard for the UK Prime Minister to make a reasonable assumption about the closeness of Iran to becoming a nuclear armed state, while also accepting, of course, that this is a repressive regime that has killed thousands of people and should never be enabled to have a nuclear weapon.
Very last thought, sorry to interrupt, because we're running out of time. Isn't it always in the British national interest to remain close to our most important ally? That's a fundamental point of British national interest right back to the Second World War.
So I have lived in America. I have studied in America. I've travelled widely in that country. I have many American friends. I regard myself as an Atlanticist. I am concerned about recent behaviour by President Trump, which I think undermines the special relationship. I don't think it's Keir Starmer undermining the special relationship. I think it's unfortunately President Trump. And what I would say is that a true friend doesn't do everything that the president wants of it when it could put at jeopardy our interest and it could harm the lives of our brave service personnel. And I would also say this, if I may. The Chancellor gave her spring forecast statement today in which she talked about the impact of this conflict potentially on inflation. We were just getting inflation under control. Oh, thankfully.
We've gone on too long and we don't need to go. But thank you so much. I've really enjoyed you coming in. So thank you very much. Coming up in just a moment, is Keir Starmer the heir to Blair?
The answer is, I don't know.
The Prime Minister's hesitation, indecision and indifference has led us to abandon our historically closest ally on the world stage. So the man who was touted as the successor to Blair has proved not to be so. Has he learnt any lessons from his predecessor?
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, I'd never heard of the guy until about 4 hours ago, but then I'd never heard of Sam Ryder. I'd never heard of Bucks Fizz before either. So who knows? I'm a bit disappointed because I thought this is the 70th Eurovision Song Contest. Why don't they send a big name, make it great glory? But they're taking a little bit of a gamble here. By all accounts, apparently the song, Scott Mills, the semi-final commentator, has said that it sounds a bit like sort of Human League meets the Pet Shop Boys.
And there's been some reporting that an unnamed act was axed from possibly representing Britain after some of the bosses involved found some unacceptable online comments. It does all point to the fact that this is going to be quite an incendiary, perhaps, edition of Eurovision in its 70th year. Plenty of countries are boycotting the event because, despite being called Eurovision, we do get inputs from countries all over the world, including from Israel, which has caused a bit of a fracas in some corners, hasn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, I've always said from day one, I mean, this would be my 27th Eurovision Song Contest, so I've been all over the globe following this show. They should never bring politics into the Eurovision Song Contest. Greece have picked their song, and I'm very sorry for anybody from Greece who's listening, but it is absolutely terrible. Estonia have picked their song, and it is absolutely amazing. It's a four-piece girl band, a bit rocky, a bit like sort of Heart would be. And I love that song. It's going to go down well in the hall, but I don't think it's going to win. We've got Albania, who tends to churn out the same sort of Balkan-sounding music every year. That'll probably finish in the top 5.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Is Keir Starmer the heir to Blair, or has he become Tony's torment? Sir Keir was lauded as the man who'd emulate New Labour's achievements, making his party electable after years in the wilderness and sweeping to a landslide victory. But he's now facing the same challenge, conflict in the Middle East. Unlike Blair, Starmer has ruined relations with the United States.
By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Compare this to President George Bush addressing Congress after the 9/11 attacks.
America has no truer friend than Great Britain. Once again, we are joined together in a great cause. So honored the British Prime Minister has crossed an ocean to show his unity with America. Thank you for coming, friend.
So is Keir Starmer learning the right lessons from Tony Blair, or is he going too far in trying to rectify the mistakes made over the Iraq War, leading to a further humiliation and a diplomatic crisis? On my panel is with me, Kelvin Mackenzie and Michael Crick. I mean, Kelvin, you were a backer of Blair. I think we can put up the Sun headline.
No, I wasn't.
No,
that was after his time, This was after me.
It was after you?
Yeah, and not only that, it was a massive mistake of which Rupert Murdoch has paid personally without going into the
gory details.
Going into the gory details. Right. It is the thing that makes me laugh most of all about that.
Your great paper. Anyway,
yeah.
Blair got one thing right, didn't he? And that was that the most important foreign affairs relationship for the United Kingdom is with the United States. And therefore, in Iraq, though there may have been bad reasons for going in, the good reason it's always in the national interest to remain close to America.
Right. So I believe that. Of course, if you were older than me, which is very hard to divine, you'd say that Harold Wilson did himself more good for history by saying we will not get involved in Vietnam. And that hangs around today, some near 70 or 60, 70 years later. So I do agree on the issue now, I'm told, is that Starmer doesn't want to have anything to do with Blair. And it's not a question of not returning his calls. It is a question of not taking any notice of his various blandishments, of which he now issues through the Tony Blair Institute. So you can see how aggravated you are as the Prime Minister. You have this glorious, successful Labour man who's disliked intensely because of his victory, typical of a protest party, right? That you have the 10 years of power, or more than 10 years of power, under Blair, but because he wasn't their kind of politician, he wasn't of the left, they have to discard him. Starmer isn't fit to polish Blair's boots, right? As much as I dislike Blair, actually, he is a clever man. There is nothing clever. What's going on right now with what's come out of the White House, we are being humiliated even by French aircraft carriers. The thing's a disgrace.
Isn't that right? It's just embarrassing that Starmer started off saying no. Now he's saying sort of yes, but in a very mealy-mouthed way. And that actually he should have said, yes, you can use the bases, as Margaret Thatcher did with the bombing of Libya all those years ago.
No, I think it's wonderful that he's been standing up to Trump and also standing up to Blair. I mean, his remarks in the Commons yesterday about not wanting to bring about regime change from the air, it wasn't quite the phrase, I can't remember what it was, were not just a dig at Trump, they were a dig at Blair as well. And Starmer, was as a lawyer, was part of the anti-Iraq part of the left, and he's showing himself to be a man of principle, and there are also, it's not just principle, it's common sense. I mean, I worked in Washington nearly 40 years ago, and I remember doing so many pieces about crises in countries like Liberia and most of Latin America, and one looked at what had happened in Vietnam and how, when the Americans intervene anywhere, it nearly always makes the situation worse. And of course, since then, since I was in Washington, we've seen that with Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya, and so...
Well, Libya was France and the UK.
Sorry, you're right, you're absolutely right, yeah. One should be terribly cautious about this, particularly when Washington, the Trump White House, doesn't really know what this war is for. They've got no objectives. Or at least the objectives are unclear.
No, that is quite wrong. They have one objective. What they're trying to do is trying to keep some critics on side. I don't know why they bother. The fact is, the idea of Iran having the nuclear weapon, and the idea, for instance, they decide to use it, right, and therefore obliterate Israel, right? I am prepared to... I am too old, so it'll be easy for people to say, well, you wouldn't go to war. This is something which we should be involved in. But actually, what I really feel intensely about this is that I haven't got a leader. Actually, I would salute Starmer had he said, we're not going to take the Spanish position, right? What I don't like is we've now got a leader. Every 2 minutes, we know from our own economic position, we know from everything that goes on through the Commons, there are U-turns galore. This is too big an issue to U-turn. You're either saying we're not going to do it or we are going to do it. And then, of course, we're even worse than that. The French send out an aircraft carrier to defend Cyprus. And what do we have to do? Oh, what have we got? Oh, we've got a warship. It'll take a while to get it out of Portsmouth, but we'll be out there. We'll be out there with Cyprus. Don't you worry, Cyprus. We're coming. I wish we had a bolder, perhaps even more wrong, actually, Prime Minister, rather than
I'd like to have a bolder Prime Minister, and one that occasionally allowed to be more wrong. But I think on this one, he's got it absolutely right. And I think that look, the British public are very unhappy about what's going on in Iran right now, and the polls show that. And it will do him good with the British public. That's what they want. And furthermore, you know, you say how it's Starmer who's ruining the special relationship. No, it's not. It's Trump. He's not just ruined the special relationship. The transatlantic relationship he has driven.
Michael, this is a bonkers thing to say.
No, it isn't. To actually insult Starmer by saying you're no Winston Churchill when he's a president who isn't even a Calvin Coolidge.
America is the power in this relationship. That we need the special relationship much more than America does.
Well,
therefore it is our job to
They were
make
rather
it...
grateful for our support over Iraq and of Afghanistan 25 years ago.
They were indeed, and that was to Blair's credit, that he did the right thing.
But as Tom Hayes so eloquently said, the Labour MP you had on just now, when friendships don't mean slavish subservience to your friend.
No, they don't.
They mean you give them advice, and when you think they're wrong, you say so, and you don't always go along with what they say.
But you don't abandon them when they've started doing something.
He's not abandoning him. If anybody's doing any abandoning, it's Trump and NATO and Ukraine.
Look, at the end of it all, the idea that we're not out there, actually, the idea that we're not firing our missiles into this country, to my mind, is completely wrong. We have to support the taking away of the threat that has dominated literally about the last 20 years of our lives. We can't have Iran have a nuclear weapon.
Thank you very much. Panel, I'm going to have to stop my most pugnacious panel there, because coming up in just a moment, nearly 1,000 years after William the Conqueror invaded British shores, France is stepping into Britain's security orbit with drone strikes hitting RAF Bakrotiri. President Emmanuel Macron sent warships and missile systems to defend it. And this evening we learned that an embarrassed Britain will belatedly send HMS Dragon to Cyprus to defend our own air bases. Why the delay and the humiliation?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Bit of a mixed bag weather-wise, looking across southern Europe at the moment. Yes, there's some wet weather in the west. We had Storm Regina pushing through Portugal, now bringing some rain across parts of Spain, even down towards the Canaries. Further east, a few showers for Italy, but across Greece it's actually largely dry on Wednesday. Some decent sunshine, and with that some decent warmth as well, with temperatures rising high teens, possibly low 20s. Still some further rain in Spain to come later this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow starting fairly cloudy, but for much of England and Wales it should brighten up with some good spells of sunshine, some brightness across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but also a few showers. Big chunky area of high pressure dominating things at the moment. It's just waddling away to the east, which is allowing the air to waft up from the south, pushing a zone of cloudier weather across the Midlands and Wales. Been there all day, just a bit further north into Northern England and Northern Ireland, where we will see a little bit of showery rain through the early hours, eventually getting into southwest Scotland before dawn. Ahead of that, to the north, clear skies across northern Scotland, allowing some frost here. Further south, temperatures mostly holding up at 5 to 6 degrees. But it will be quite a cloudy, misty, murky start for many on Wednesday. But the mist and low cloud should be melting away from England and Wales. Probably a bright, sunny start in the far north, but it will be a chilly start here. That cloud pushing up through the central belt, some showery rain, particularly for Glasgow and for Belfast first thing. But it should be also clearing from here during the morning. The odd shower for the far northwest of England, for the Lake District, but most of England and Wales dry and increasingly sunny. Yes, we will start with mist and low cloud, particularly across the home counties, parts of the East Midlands, but that should be melting away, breaking up to reveal some spring sunshine, and say most of England and Wales seeing lengthy sunny spells by the afternoon. Some brightness for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but this zone of wetter weather clinging to parts of western Scotland. To the east, it may brighten up in Edinburgh, temperatures up to to 12 degrees here, but further south we're looking at temperatures in the mid-teens quite widely, perhaps the southeast getting up to 17 or 18, and Thursday could be warmer still. The wind's still wafting the air up from the south, a brisk breeze across the northeast, some wetter weather though coming back into Northern Ireland and western Scotland, eventually some of that rain popping up in the west of England and Wales later on. But before that, the Midlands and eastern England, another pretty fine day and getting a little warmer. Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've been talking about the special relationship in the air to Blair, and the Rees-Moggs have been coming in on missiles, I think, today. Charles says, we hardly need the President of the United States to tell us that Starmer is no Churchill. What Mr Trump should have stated is what Starmer actually is, a quivering jelly, unsuited to any kind of leadership role, least of all as leader of our country. And Mike says Starmer's not even Neville Chamberlain, let alone Churchill. At least Chamberlain strengthened our defences after Munich. Starmer appeases our enemies and fails to back up our main ally, even when one of our bases was attacked. He pours public funds into a money-eating NHS and a hideously misdirected welfare system while neglecting defence. Well, thank you very much to Mike. So after 1,000 years, nearly, when William the Conqueror came across and won the Battle of Hastings, took control of England, France is once again stepping onto territory tied to Britain's security interests. With drone strikes hitting RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, President Emmanuel Macron is sending warships and missile systems, whilst His Majesty's government waited until this evening to commit to sending a ship, HMS Dragon, to defend our own bases in the eastern Mediterranean. Our relationship with the United States damaged. Why so much delay and reluctance to defend our own territory? There's also the prospect of French nuclear weapons coming to England too. Anyway, I'm now joined by the former NATO commander, Rear Admiral Chris Parry. Thank you very much for joining me again on this programme. Why are we not able to defend Cyprus, which, as I understand it, we have a treaty obligation to defend?
Well, good evening, Sir Jacob. Well, there's two reasons, really. One is we've totally underinvested in defence. We've neglected our Navy. We've seen the effects of the engagement in Afghanistan and Iraq. All that has drawn down on our defences. But most importantly, the government has failed to anticipate what's going to happen in relation to the United States and Israel's intervention in Iran. Normally, at the political military level, you game this sort of thing. You'd say, what are the risks to British interests, British citizens, and you will take precautions accordingly. I'm afraid this hasn't happened. And I'm asking myself, why do we have a national security team if they can't actually see what's going to happen down the line?
But are there problems in the MOD as well? Because I read earlier today that one of our destroyers has been under repair for 9 years. Surely things like that are problematic, that we're not getting our equipment through, our procurement isn't working. There are really deep-seated problems.
Well, yes, there are. And I'm afraid we need a change of government. We need a change of culture if we're going to solve these things. I was in the Navy at the time the Type 45s were procured. Political decisions were made about some of the equipment, some of the installation within it, and we're now living with the consequences of that. And that is why you've got 4 of these ships alongside in maintenance, 1 available for operations, when in fact you should have 3.
And you were saying about our not knowing and not gaming what America and Israel is about to do. Now, the defenders of Starmer say the special relationship carries on because at the operational level, the Five Eyes and all of that, we work very closely together. Are you saying that some of that is at risk because of our lack of capability?
There's no doubt that our relationship has been damaged. I think we heard Pete Hegseth say that our strongest allies are our capable allies. And they were quite clearly saying today that Britain is not a capable ally. I was with Americans today, and they were saying, look, we love you, Brits, and we really want you alongside us for things like this. But right now, we're not trusting you because you don't have the same level of capability that can actually engage in high-level warfare like what is going on in Iran and also in Ukraine at the moment. The fact of life is, Sir Jacob, we spent 20 years bogged down in Afghanistan and Iraq, and all our capability was benchmarked against al-Qaeda and the Taliban. And of course, they didn't have a Navy or an Air Force, so we benchmarked very low indeed. We haven't recovered from that.
And so what can be done and how quickly can it be done? How can we improve this situation so that we can be a reliable ally, defend ourselves and our key assets globally?
Well, I could say, how long have you got? But I will say very briefly, what we can do is procure a large number of modular systems that are available on the world market today and put them into our platforms, whether it's air, by sea, or indeed by land. And actually, we've got to say to ourselves, we've got to prepare for war and adapt for peace. Right now, we have a whole structure that essentially thinks it's going to be going around in peacetime all the time and may actually go to war. All our senior leaders right now, frankly, just don't want their bluff to be called. I used to say when I was in the Ministry of Defence that all politicians take risk, of course they do, but the problem is that political and management risk is the risk that politicians and managers take, safe in the knowledge they'll never be exposed to that risk.
Well, of course, the politicians rotate through the Ministry of Defence so quickly, none of them are there long enough to take responsibility. But were you as surprised as I was listening to the spring statement that there was no mention of defence spending at a time of serious risk?
It's quite interesting. If you go to Ukraine now, you say to people, what's your top priority for your spending and your society at the moment? They say defence, defence, defence. We're in a very dangerous world right now. We have Russia obviously knocking on the doors of Europe. At the moment in Ukraine, I think next against the Baltic, Sweden and Finland. We've got China even further away, but I always say that Russia might be bad weather, but China is climate change. We are not in any way prepared to resist coercion, to resist the sort of force that we're seeing used by nations around the world today. We've got to grow up. I'm afraid my generation, your generation, has been very privileged. We've had unheard of peace in that time. All the conditions for what I call very muscular nationalism are out there today, and we have to be able to resist coercion. We need to deter the sort of actions that we've seen in Ukraine, and also, of course, regimes like Iran.
Admiral, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Coming up in just a moment, the Chancellor's spring statement was 30 minutes of nothing. With the crisis in the Middle East affecting oil prices, the downward vision of growth was glossed over and record high youth unemployment was blamed on everybody else. Rachel Reeves' statement addressed nothing, solved nothing, achieved nothing, and the economic damage will continue.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
The Chancellor's spring statement was 30 minutes of nothing, with the crisis in the Middle East pushing up oil prices. Downgraded growth forecast quietly brushed aside, and record youth unemployment blamed on everybody else. There was no plan, no accountability and no urgency. Rachel Reeves addressed nothing, solved nothing and achieved nothing, and the economy will still be damaged. Well, my panel is still here. Michael, I'll let you try and defend the spring statement. Is there anything positive from it?
Not really, but I mean, they should have cancelled it, but you can't because it's become an annual event now, and so everybody would have fussed about it. And in the current circumstances, you can't make any announcements, because we just don't know what is going to happen to the economy. Is this going to be a temporary blip, the Middle East situation, and oil prices, gas prices go up and they'll be down again in 2 weeks, or is it going to last for months, if not years?
But shouldn't she therefore have taken control and said at the beginning of her statement that actually she was going to come back to the House in a fortnight when things were clearer?
But who's to say whether in a fortnight they will be clearer?
It may not be. But today's statement served no purpose. She was working on ABR forecasts that were made before Iran came under attack, before oil prices and gas prices. Gas prices have now doubled since the point at which this happened. That throws all of the forecasts out, and she went ahead with a statement as if nothing was happening.
What can you do but stick to, when you can't work out which way things are going to go? All you can do is just stick to the current forecast. It's a farcical situation. I agree. I'm not going to pretend.
But don't you
that
admit it's farcical at the beginning rather than pretending?
No, because you can't. The economy is too serious to start saying that this is a farcical situation. You have to go through the process because it's now become a parliamentary occasion.
You see, Kelvin, I think you need to trust voters who aren't stupid. They realise that this is all very difficult, and you stand up and say, "Look, the ABR's made its forecasts, but in the last 48 hours, everything has changed. Therefore, we're going to have to think differently." And I would expect to come back to the House in 2 weeks, a month, 3 months to update the House.
In due time. Mind you, there was stuff in there which would make you feel very uneasy if you're a parent and you're looking to your children for work. For instance, the idea that they're saying that 1.9 million are going to be out of work overall and that there will be an increase in youngsters being out of work. But the line I did not like in that was the throwaway line in the OBR, which said that actually what you can't really work out is how much more tax is going to be taken out of those who are earning money. i.e., what they're saying is, are the demands of the state going to be so large that the tax base that can pay for it is actually not going to be big enough, and we're all going to have to face really substantial more taxation? And that, to me, was an enormous worry.
And that is one of the great questions of our time, really, and we very rarely address it. I mean, there is actually a government minister called Jason Stockwood in the House of Lords. He used to be the chairman of Grimsby Town Football Club, but he has a tech background. And one of the things he's studying is the idea of you know, that if there are going to be lots of unemployed people, or at least for a while, because of AI, should we not be? Is there a way of bringing in a universal wage so that you give a safety net for all of those people? Seems to me that the costs of that would just be so enormous that you couldn't do it. But he's working on it.
But there was nothing to be said in there. So I hadn't thought of Jacob's idea, but actually there was nothing that was said there, and actually deliberately so. They've been briefing now for weeks on end, saying nothing to be seen here. The one thing that Starmer didn't want was another blow-up, because he thought, if I could have it nice and comfortable between now and May the 6th, perhaps I can escape all this. And he was just about to say that. And he said, what was that? They've done what? In where? Oh, my God. And on hearing that, explains why he looked like he looked on television while Miss Rees was making her address. He looked as though he was sitting on a very large carrot.
And it does leave a number of problems for Rachel Reeves from this statement. One is defence spending, that we are in a different world on defence spending, and she needs to address that. And the other is the ABR's forecast on immigration. Immigration is coming down, thanks to happens Rishi Sunak. The ABR scores that very badly. As it happens, I think they're wrong, but that's the basis on which the Chancellor makes her pronouncements.
Jacob, but what about welfare? What about welfare? It's going up by 18 billion, right? 18 billion. How much would our Defence Ministry like to get hold of that 18 billion?
18 billion would be transformative.
I mean, on defence, you're absolutely right. It's ridiculous that Starmer goes to the Munich Security Conference and says, quite rightly, that we've all got to spend more on defence. And then, but
then does nothing.
We still yet to see the figures and when, or at least we know the figures, but we don't know when. And this Labour government needs to get a move on with that, and in the way that other countries are.
You're in the centre on the left side. Tell me, how is the Parliamentary Labour Party? I mean, we're talking about it here. There doesn't seem to be a lot of division right across the width of the discussion. Well, what did the Parliamentary Labour Party think about having a leader who so consistently appears, now it may be media talk, but consistently gets things wrong? What are they going to do? Are they going to do anything? Or are they just going to say, we will limp on?
They're deeply unhappy about it. But how many of them say so? Hardly any. I mean, in the days when your party was having leadership crises every couple of months, there would be dozens of MPs coming out. I mean, they're all the same characters every time. But with Labour,
very often me.
Yes, it was you quite a lot. But now it's about probably no more than half a dozen.
All right, so all you Labour MPs, your county custards, come on, show your mettle, show your backbone. We're going to the man with great backbone, almost Somerset-style backbone. Patrick Christys, are you going to show us our backbone in the next 2 or 3 hours?
Well, it's not difficult to show more backbone than our Prime Minister, is it really? I mean, we had sovereign British military bases attacked by an Islamist regime, and he decided to just press ahead and let the French defend it for a little bit. At every opportunity, he's coming out to tell everyone, we were not involved, we were not involved. Such a weak little man. We're going to talk about all of that tonight.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow starting fairly cloudy, but for much of England and Wales it should brighten up with some good spells of sunshine, some brightness across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but also a few showers. Big chunky area of high pressure dominating things at the moment. It's just waddling away to the east, which is allowing the air to waft up from the south, pushing a zone of cloudier weather across the Midlands and Wales. Been there all day, just a bit further north into Northern England and Northern Ireland, where we will see a little bit of showery rain through the early hours, eventually getting into southwest Scotland before dawn. Ahead of that, to the north, clear skies across northern Scotland, allowing some frost here. Further south, temperatures mostly holding up at 5 to 6 degrees. But it will be quite a cloudy, misty, murky start for many on Wednesday. But the mist and low cloud should be melting away from England and Wales. Probably a bright, sunny start in the far north, but it will be a chilly start here. That cloud pushing up through the central belt, some showery rain, particularly for Glasgow and for Belfast first thing. But it should be also clearing from here during during the morning. The odd shower for the far northwest of England, for the Lake District, but most of England and Wales dry and increasingly sunny. Yes, we will start with mist and low cloud, particularly across the home counties, parts of the East Midlands, but that should be melting away, breaking up to reveal some spring sunshine, and say most of England and Wales seeing lengthy sunny spells by the afternoon. Some brightness for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but this zone of wetter weather clinging to parts of western Scotland. To the east, it may brighten up in Edinburgh. Temperatures up to 12 degrees here, but further south, we're looking at temperatures in the mid-teens quite widely, perhaps the southeast getting up to 17 or 18. And Thursday could be warmer still. The wind's still wafting the air up from the south, a brisk breeze across the northeast. Some wetter weather, though, coming back into Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Eventually some of that rain popping up in the west of England and Wales later on. But before that, the Midlands and eastern England, another pretty fine day and getting a little warmer. Goodbye.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could be the proud owner of a brand new Benevan 122. This very latest 2026 model comfortably sleeps 4, comes complete with built-in kitchen, compact washroom, and is worth over £67,000. But that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £25,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like in the coming year. For a chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225.